Eric Fortenberry, how are you?
Doing great. How are you, Dom?
Good. Good to see you again.
Great to see you.
Yeah, although I guess we're kind of always in touch because you're in the group and there's always chit chat
Yep,
going on, going on
definitely.
there. Yeah, yeah. Sorry, let me mention what the group is. For those of you listening and those of you watching the video on YouTube, Eric's also in the contractor strategy group, which is the contractor group on Facebook, where we just talk about contractor stuff. And you were deep in the conversation with somebody about estimating and how to make sure. Well, why don't you do a brief explanation on that before I tell us our topic?
Yeah, it was, just I think one of our customers kind of asking about, getting, kind of all the pricing for, basically a price sheet. There's a lot of different kind of services out there where you can buy, price lists that,
Right.
are really, set up as, kind of every single, labor and, type of trade, materials, really what these companies are doing is essentially kind of figuring out the cost of, all of this stuff for their location. And then they use a cost of living adjustment factor to kind of try to take it into all the different, cities and counties and, all over. And so it's something that, we hear a lot, people are asking, well, do you guys include all the, the cost for everything? It's like, well, no, we don't know what things cost in your area. And so it's something that, we do get asked a lot about that, but at the end of the day, it's, I think there's a lot more that goes into actually accurately estimating, and building out your job budgets than just kind of some number that some service is generated and has really no idea what you're trying to do with
What
it.
the local flavor is. Yeah. You've got a different price in Austin, Texas or Dallas, Texas than you do in a small town south of Austin, right? Hey, before we get into that, some people might be wondering, who the heck is Eric Fortenberry and how is it he comes to be speaking to us, a group of forward-facing, contractors and business owners? Eric, can you tell us a bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. I'm the founder and CEO of JobTread. We provide construction management, all in one kind of estimating, budgeting, CRM for any construction based business. If you're running jobs and you need to kind of manage those jobs, your job costing, issuing your purchase orders, work orders, managing all your billing, even invoicing, collecting those payments. And we basically have developed a solution that I actually built it while I was running.
You were a contractor, weren't
GC.
You? Yeah.
Yep.
What kind of GC were you? Commercial, residential?
Yeah, we did primarily commercial work for kind of some large names. Where we got out and, just everything from kind of painting to, fixing gates, doing a lot of, concrete, interior finish out, some roofing. But yeah, it was, so before this, actually, I built and sold a software company. So my background is in finance and then software. And then I ended up taking over a GC for a year. They essentially were struggling to grow, kind of get past that $5 million, sort of ceiling that they were hitting, and asked me to come in and figure out how to, help them scale their business. And so, it was at that point where I really kind of did a deep dive into the construction space. And specifically, I figured they just needed some software. We could improve their processes,
right.
Kind of get some things set up for them, and that would kind of get them going. And, I looked at everything out there, and, my takeaway was like a lot of the software and a lot of the tools and technology out there was either, super antiquated, created 15, 20 years ago. I could tell it would either be, really, complicated to learn, or, a lot of training involved, or need to hire someone to customize it,
right.
or it was super expensive. And those guys are like, well, you're a software guy. Can't you just build us something? I was like, well,
easy, isn't it? Isn't it easy building a software? Yeah.
I was like, I don't know if I want to like create another one-off solution that, ultimately I knew they would have to maintain. And they kept pushing me. And so I was like, look, guys, here's the deal. My one condition, I'll take over as CEO and I'll give you 1 year. We'll right the ship. We'll get the processes, the systems in place. We'll get you back on track. And so, that's when I built out the first version of JobTread, while managing that business.
At the same time, while you were running the GC business. Okay.
Yep. Just out of a needs basis. And we grew them from 5 to 8 million in sales that year. We increased their gross profit by 43%. So we were able to finally hit our target profit margins because we were tracking it in real time and we were organized. What do you know, right? And so it was at the end of that year that basically, thank the guys for the opportunity. But essentially that's when I founded JobTread, and we've since then taken it to over 300 customers in our first year selling it. And so it's
Good.
been a really great opportunity so far.
Well, today you and I are here to talk about guessing versus estimating.
That's exactly what I walked into at the GC too.
Yeah. And I say it's funny, but it's not funny at all, because the people living through it right now are frustrated.
Yeah.
Pulling whatever hair they have remaining out because they're working harder than ever and not getting paid what they should on a job. Just this morning, I had a conversation with somebody where we did something I do called an end of job report. Very simple, actual versus estimated, and you've probably heard the Forbes article. It's the leprechaun report, right? But man, if you're making 20% on a job, you're in trouble because you still have to remove your costs from that. And so it's only, I think, when people see it on paper, when they see the facts, so they move from guessing to actually estimating, when they move from uncertainty to certainty, that they start to enjoy running the business. And I'll bet you those guys are pretty happy when they're at 43% margin.
Oh yeah. I mean, and our target was 30%, but it was just like when I walked in, my recommendation was you guys might as well go to Vegas and roll the dice, because total crapshoot. Like, they had no idea how they were going to perform on a job until 30, 45 days after they've already sent all the invoices to the customers. They've paid all the bills. And then they're sitting there scratching their heads. We're wondering where the profit went. Yeah.
It's a hard place to be. So, well, let's walk through that. Let's get into this guessing versus estimating. And I guess you see it because you work with people on it. Yeah. And let's keep this, let's go to the level here where anybody listening, whether they decide to check out this isn't about your software. This is about how to put systems in place to move from guessing to estimating. So why don't you walk us through some of your observations and takeaways that people can have?
Yeah, I mean, well, again, kind of relying back on my own experience, when I walked into the GC, I found that, and again, one of the co-founders, guys, he's been doing, construction for 20 plus years. Like, he definitely was very good at looking at a project and just sort of somehow knew what it was going to cost. And he could just pull a number out of thin air. And, a lot of the times he would, be pretty accurate, but the problem with that is that whenever the customer then agreed to that, he would hand the job off to a project manager and say, all right, now go get us our 30%. And the project manager's like, how in the world did you come up with that? I mean,
they can't reverse engineer.
Yeah. You made it up out of thin air. And, it's something that, it worked for him when he was a solo owner operator, kind of just doing a couple jobs at a time. But as you scale your business and then you hire other people, not having a good system in place, giving them setting a model and kind of doing it the right way, it obviously led to those other people starting to just make up numbers. And it's like, you can't reliably and accurately, price a job if you don't know what is going to go into that job. Yeah.
It's so funny that you say that, because it sounds obvious, but so many of us are good at going with our gut. Yep. We just look at a job and say it's a $10,000 job, or, when I was a painter, that's a $2,500 bungalow. They're all $2,500. Some of them are 24, some of them are 27. But I also was trained on a system. The simplest things, Eric, like if you don't have a tape measure, this is how you pace a house. Every step is 3 feet. So you put your heel against the edge of the house and you walk. And so then you just multiply 3 times how many steps you took, and the length of the house. And then every floor is 8 to 10 feet. So call it 10. And then you've got your height and your length. And those simple systems at the time, I'm like, guys, do we really need to do this? And they just hammered it into us. This is how you estimate. This is how long it's going to take to do a wood window. This is how long it's going to take to cut an aluminum or a vinyl window, And I was able to hand that off to my project managers. Yep. And that whole comment there made it sound like it was easy. It was not easy. But that part was easier because I always knew where we were losing money, at least. I knew that all the time.
Well, and I think a lot of people don't often reflect back and try to look at, the performance and try to do what you said earlier about kind of after the job has been completed, analyze how did you perform on that job? How did you do relative to your estimate and to the budget that you set forth before you started? Did you come in over, or did you come in under, or did you hit it? Were you on par? Like, that reflective moment, is so important to make sure that if you underbid that job, if you underestimated what it was going to take, whatever factors may be, you have to always reflect and then make changes to make sure that you don't make the same mistake twice.
Yeah.
I'm always okay with my team making a mistake once, but do not make that same mistake twice. You need to learn from your mistakes And, if you keep doing that, well, then we got a bigger issue here.
Yeah. Hey, can I take you back in time to when you were at the GC? So now you're at the GC, the general contracting company. So now you're running the same business that all of our audience is. How did you introduce this? You called it a reflective moment. How did you introduce this? It's another meeting. Are you kidding me? That job's done. I don't have the time. I'm sure you heard all those things, right?
Yeah.
How did you turn the ship around, internally to make that a thing? Because I think there's a lot of people out there would appreciate hearing that.
Sure. I mean, I would say when I went in, they were having those post meetings, but like, again, they literally had these folders full of papers, all the purchase orders, the work orders, the bills that they had collected. They were passing around paper, moved from folder to folder to folder, and so like, it was just like this, it really was a very unproductive exercise that they were going through. And that's when, I kind of right at the very beginning, like I realized all of the inefficiencies, and so like, it's not that they weren't trying, but like, it just is very inefficient process.
They didn't have a simple system.
Exactly. And so, when I kind of saw that's when I was just like, hold on, guys. Like, I mean, I found one place where there was literally quadruple data entry. It went from this one piece of paper to this spreadsheet, copied to another sheet, to another, and it ended up, being manually typed into QuickBooks. And it's like, there's so many opportunities for errors, for issues, costs were getting put to the wrong jobs. Like, QuickBooks is obviously, it's, got its own, challenges too with job costing and things like that.
Yeah.
And so, just having all of the disconnections between, the accounting and kind of the AP and the AR, and then the project managers, and then you got the field guys and the workers. There was just so many kind of different pieces, and they weren't connected and communicating and on the same page. And, much less all these folders and papers and binders. Like, I was just like, hold on, like, we got to get more organized here. And so, I think that was kind of really the eye-opening moment where we decided, okay, let's try to get this, in one place, automate some of this, have the data sort of flow, required. I mean, really one of the very first things we did was, from an estimating standpoint, I required the salespeople to build out a budget. I said, before you can send any price, we're going to come up with every single cost, do the takeoff, get the measurements, and at the very beginning, and let's come back to this, but, again, they did a lot of time and material work, which, I got a whole separate thoughts on that, but, just first I wanted it all documented. Okay. Before you can sell this job, I want to see what this job is going to cost us.
Right.
And then, I also found it took me a good while to figure this out. Some of the salespeople were using markup and some were using margin.
No,
we were targeting a 30% profit margin, and the guys using a 30% markup were shooting themselves in the foot. There was no way they were going to hit a 30% profit margin. 23% was the best they were going to do. And like, we didn't even realize that until we started analyzing it.
So we may have you back as a guest in the future. So what you just said there is a game changer for anybody listening. So for those of you that were maybe nodding off and thinking this isn't the episode for you, Eric just hit on something that's a game changer. Can I just tell a story real quick?
Yeah.
So just this morning, I was on a call with one of my clients, and we're trying to figure out, he's like, Dom, we are working hard. We price it properly. Why aren't we making the money? And I'm like, so we're breaking things out the same way you did, right? Line by line, like grinding over, what about this? What about that? And I'm like, what's the multiplier you use? And he goes, 35%. I'm like, hang on. How did you do the multiplication? He goes, take all the costs times 1.35.
It's markup.
That's markup, not margin. And so for people who are shaking their head or pulling out what's left of their hair, when you do that, you only get about 23% margin. In order to get a 35%, no, markup, geez, I just did it. You actually need a table to look at. You need to look at a table that says, if I want 35% profit margin, gross profit margin, I need to multiply about times 1.53. There's a number. It's not even a secret number. Look it up on the internet. But it's so different.
Put your calculators away. No more mental math. No more calculators. No. We just built a tool.
Yeah.
Automatically calculated every time. It's easy to do markup. The margin is a harder calculation to kind of figure out. And so, It's just such an easy, mistake though. And it's a, it's just a different formula. It's a more complicated formula, but like it makes
accurate.
sure that your profit is built into that price, not just adding on top of it. So I think that was a huge win, and probably one of the biggest drivers of us being able to hit our target profit margin is that we use the right multiplier.
That's right.
So
I think what we should do, sorry, since you and I are both in contractor strategy group, we should start a thread on this. Just ask how many of our people are using markup, or do they know? Because I think in a lot of cases, actually, that's what this show is about, is educating contractors on the business of the construction business. So thank you for bringing that point up. Excellent.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think though, to kind of come back to my other point, the other big thing that like, it was very challenging to estimate the number of hours that it was going to take to complete something, and we had a lot of guys that had worked for us for a long time. Yeah. And, you do kind of get a feel for, some of them are faster, some of them are slower, but just coming up with a general, number of hours was a very tricky thing that, we rarely hit that. And so if I'm going to basically give a fixed price to a customer and then in turn pay my guys hourly to go and do the work, that's such a variable, like you can't. And so like that's when I really learned about the benefit of, actually requiring the subs and the crews. I said, look, you go out there and you can estimate it. You give me your price, bid on this job to me. And I want to know how much you're going to charge me to do X, Y, and Z. I really don't care how long it's going to take, other than I want to be able to kind of give the customer an idea of when I think we can complete this.
Right.
But we switched to using basically guaranteed amounts and, guaranteed, rates for the project. And we then took that, put our margin on top, and sent the price to the customer. When they approved it, then I turned that bid into a work order, said, here you go, guys, go get it done. I'm going to pay you that amount, no matter if it takes you, the number of hours you thought, or if it takes
10 hours or 12 hours, 10 days or 12 days. Right.
Yeah. It was a much better way, and it locked in my cost so that I didn't have this variable, and it didn't really matter if they underestimated or overestimated the hours, because that's no longer my problem. You gave me a guaranteed amount. I'm paying you for X, Y, and Z, no more. And I'm, even if you do it faster, great. You can move on to the next job. That's your benefit. I don't care. I'm going to pay you X no matter what.
Yeah. And now you work to hit your own number.
Exactly.
Another funny story, and I think I've told this on the show before, is a customer of mine was doing the end of job reports. And then we do this thing called an end of job summary, where you do a head-to-head battle, job versus job, which one made us money, which one lost us money, where, etc. And so we came to realize that some jobs we lost money, and on those jobs we lost about $2,000. And so the obvious question is, why and how? Yeah. And so it turned out it was on an installation piece of the job. And so, as you know, I like to joke around. The most interesting man in the world, the Dos Equis guy? Yeah. That meme of that, he's the bearded guy. So I took that picture and I made a meme for them and said, we don't always lose money on jobs, but when we do, we lose $2,000. And because it just pops to this, once you start to look at your business as a business person, you start to, the info just floats to the top. Now you just have to act on it. What do we have to do different? And it was stopping guessing. For that little subcontracted installation piece, the salesperson, who quite often didn't know what it was like to swing a hammer or turn wrenches, said, I don't know, that should cost X. And there was no checks and balances. So they were guessing wrong by $2,000. It's a lot of money on every job. That's funny. It reminds me of a story too. So when I really got into the nuts and bolts of this GC business, and I started analyzing all of the the job and the job costing and the performance on it, I built out this tool to essentially figure out. I looked at it by customer, how profitable we were. Yeah. By by customer, and then by customer contact. So let's say our customer was public storage. Well, we might have 30 different locations and different kind of facility managers that we work directly for. Okay. And I also looked at it by trade, by type of work that we did, and I found that
every single time when we did a particular type of job, in Houston for this particular contact, we lost 10 to 12% every single time. And that went on for just months and months and months. And the owners never had any idea because again, the job costing wasn't there. There was no, performance review, and they didn't realize it. And ultimately what it ended up being was that we were just had the wrong price for our material costs, never updated it, never went to think, hey, maybe we need to, check. And so obviously the price of, that particular materials for fencing, it had gone up, and, they're again, like if
using
you don't
the wrong multiplier
check, your numbers could be wrong. Things are changing, and it's just such a common thing. I feel like, to not, reflect back and constantly, get those updated pricing. I mean, send out bid requests to your suppliers, get those bid requests from your subs, before every job, especially things that aren't, kind of a very, similar. If you're doing the same kind of turnkey over and over.
Yeah. 2x4s and nails, we can sort of, we know what they're doing, but anything complicated.
Yeah.
So one of the, I guess I use kind of business coachy, geeky language for this, but I'll say it here, is there comes a time when you have to question all of your estimating assumptions.
Yep.
And so I'm sure you'll have some takeaways that people are already writing down, but if you're thinking about these things from this conversation between Eric and I, put something in your calendar that says, I'm just going to go question every line on my estimates. Just start there, please.
Yep.
Hey, I want to take you back to how did we get these reflective moments happening? Where did we stop and look back on the job? And this is a weird direction I'm going to go in, but I can almost guarantee you had it. How did you deal with the ego of, I didn't make a mistake, I was doing my best, and when we caught a mistake? Like, how did you deal with it? Did that happen in the company, and how did you deal with it?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. Well, so one of the things that I put into place is I basically, after a salesperson built the budget and then sent the job to the customer, the proposal, once the customer approved it, we locked the budget. They could not go back and change anything from there.
Who couldn't? So the salesperson or the
salesperson couldn't. You could not change your original estimated, because I wanted to know how accurate, are they estimating? And, obviously there could be a tendency to, let me just go update that, just to make it look better. And so, at the end of the day too, though, the way that we really ultimately handled this was I essentially incentivized both the salesperson and the project manager with a commission on the gross profit of the job.
Oh, I love it.
So the salesperson, you can't just sell it for, the highest number, if we're not going to come in and actually, win that job, then, it's not going to matter anyways. And then, you can't have the incentive to just, basically not accurately price it. We wanted to align both the sales side and then the actual operations of it, to have them aligned. And so they're both going to get, and we did the same exact, it was basically 10% of the gross profit, went to each of them. And so now, they would work together, and, we were going to hit that number. And, it aligned everyone on the same page, and we could be more open and transparent about it, and so that's how, at the end of the day, we're one team, the company has to win and we have to be profitable. And so it didn't help for the salesperson to just, inflate the price of the job, thinking they were going to get a bigger commission just because they sold it for more. No, it needed to be directly related to what is the gross profit of the job.
Such an important point. Pay your salespeople on gross profit, not on sales, because then your salesperson's, if you just pay on sales, all your salesperson or your designer or your estimator is incented to do is sell the job, but not to sell it profitably.
Yep.
What about change orders? If you don't mind me asking, did you do any incentives around change orders, or how did you do change order tracking?
I mean, we just, the real problem that I found is that, and I think it's a natural tendency for, a lot of people just, you want to say yes all the time. You want to be the hero. You want to always keep the customer as happy as possible. And I think the bigger issue is that, change orders just weren't happening at all, and so they just kind of kept, we'll just, we'll have the guys just do that too. Just, no, we can do that as well. And so again, though, a lot of times there was no documentation and the scope of work wasn't flushed out in those, in those original, let's pull a number out of thin air. And so that kind of led to a lot of that. And so once we started documenting it and having a very clear defined, scope for every single job and what was included and how we're pricing that job, it became a lot more natural that if the customer wanted to come back and say, well, now they want something else, or, maybe we
while you're here, do you mind doing this thing too?
Exactly. I mean, and there were so many times where, again, when the crews were able to bill us for their time, then they would always say yes. But when I started telling the subs, hey, you're not getting paid for anything that's not on this piece of paper, they started saying no.
The brakes. Yeah.
They sent the customer back to the salesperson, or the project manager. But there's so many times the customer just tried to kind of get that guy to go do a little bit more.
Just fix that door closer while you're here.
Yeah,
You've got a ladder and a screwdriver. Can you just, yeah.
Happened all the time. And so, with that clear, documentation, with a budget built, it was very crystal clear when additional work needed to be done that wasn't within the scope. And so having that process and making it easy to generate a change order that then essentially increased the approved budget, and it increased the price.
Yeah.
And we could immediately invoice for the change order. That whole thing sort of flushed itself out when we kind of cut off the open-ended, time material checkbook here. It fixed itself, really.
Yeah, I love this. I mean, you're talking about adding certainty to the business, and that certainty had to give you confidence, because in the beginning, I imagine the amount of stress you were under, just not knowing the answer to everything, had to be driving you crazy.
Yeah,
you still have a thick head of dark hair, but I'm sure it was I'm sure it was at risk at some
close.
point.
It's coming in great.
Oh yeah, just wait till it starts marching south. Then it's bad.
Maybe zooms up and the beard here. Maybe,
yeah, you've got a little gray in the beard there. You distinguished. Distinguished.
Yeah. Now, the other thing,
glasses.
Though, Dom, the other thing though is when you put the project manager and the salesperson commissioned on gross profit, change orders weren't gonna they would have, if you didn't do it, it'd just eat out of your profit.
Yeah.
So they were now like Johnny on the spot, not gonna let that happen anymore.
No, I've seen companies, and I'm a big fan of this, where the PM in this particular company gets paid for change orders over $1,000.
Yeah. I mean,
and they don't have to get much, $25, but it has to be a reasonable change order, a reasonable size, and it has to be approved, of course. But why wouldn't the PM on a job, assuming the salesperson or the designer or the estimator is not on the project, the PM should get a little nudge for saying, hey, I noticed that this could work. We can do this as well if you like. And then they get a little bit of compensation for it. But what's happening is we're lining everybody else up with what the business owner's goal is. When we're going in different directions, it leads to frustration. Simple example. I had a client who was doing a lot of work outside of the zones of their city. So zone 1 is close to your shop. Zone 2 is a little further out. Easy math, right? Zone 4 is outside of far away, right? But he was charging mileage for people that were far away. Mm-hmm. And so the easy thing, you think, Dom, your job as a business coach must be so hard. No, the suggestion was, well, we're charging mileage, but we pay hourly. And he just went, oh, you know what we should do, Dom? I'm like, no, what should we do? And he went, we should charge hourly, not mileage. What a great idea. And so that was the change he made to his estimates, right? Because you have to, everything's just a little change, but all of those, they plug our profit leaks because we're bleeding a million little cuts here and there. It adds up.
Yeah. I think one thing though, you also have to think about the, like even if you can go and upsell, which I'm a huge proponent of, always upsell, add-ons, but you have to remember too, like, the schedule, and depending on if you can actually continue, and do that additional work then, or if you're going to need to basically schedule a follow-up to come back, sometimes I saw a lot of times the tendency to, well, we're already here, let's just kind of keep going. But like, if we had already scheduled those guys to be at another customer's job site, that's where, it can get a little bit tricky. And so, we definitely wanted to make sure that, kind of, we took the holistic, we have to look at the schedule before just, kind of tacking on additional work while we're out there. We were doing a lot more kind of commercial though. So we're, it's very kind of regimented, scheduled. Obviously if you're out, with a residential homeowner, you probably get a little bit more flexibility.
Right.
Sometimes it really depends on the situation though.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, we also wanted to, for larger upsells, would want to bring in our more experienced, estimator or, salesperson to try to kind of flush out that, versus, if you got your project manager, sometimes, and again, this is very situational, right? Like, do you want everybody, kind of selling, or do you want to have, this project manager specializes on managing the crews, getting the job work done,
That's true. What they're good at, what people are good at. Yeah. So here's what I got from you so far. Other people may have taken other notes. So, but I'll put this here. So in the world of guessing versus estimating for running our construction business, stop going with your gut. If you want to delegate, you need a system. And I said simple system. Have these reflective moments, which is a meeting, right? To talk about these things. And in the meeting, sales has to have a budget that gets locked down and documented. So it's based on facts that we can all follow.
Yep.
And then it's hard to estimate the number of hours to complete. So move towards a system where you get, a locked in number from any sub trade you might use.
Yep.
And by the way, this doesn't just apply to GCs. If you're a sub trade and you're using another sub, like even a carpet cleaning person, you still have to get a locked in price from them on that. Yep. And then start to look at how you're incenting your people. Make sure that's lined up with the way you are running a business.
Yep.
Right. And so again, this show is all about running this business like a business, not just a construction crew. Nothing wrong with both, but this show is about running it like a business.
Yeah. I think the thing, too, that, we ought to maybe address a little bit is, so, when you're using subcontractors, it is, a lot easier to kind of just have that, I need a fixed price for every job that you're, kind of having that in place. Now, when businesses have, their own employees, kind of W-2, hourly based, workers, obviously you're not necessarily going to, lay them all off and go and start using a bunch of subs or convert them all to subs. But I think the important thing there is that, you do have them on an hourly rate, but really understanding and figuring out those metrics of, what is the unit cost? How long does it take you to complete, if let's say you're doing, fencing, you could look at the linear feet of a fence, and we can, our guys can, basically, it takes this many, this many linear feet of, to demo a fence, how long it takes, and it, to then, put the new one up, and then, to stain it, like, really understanding the unit, cost there, and kind of that whatever that metric may be, whether it's based on, linear feet or square feet or, squares or, whatever it is.
Materials, doesn't matter.
You have to analyze and just start tracking to understand their efficiency so that you can better estimate out how many hours it is going to take. If you are in that situation with W-2s, you're paying them hourly, and it is what it is, but you have to really focus on that and not just kind of make these assumptions that everyone operates at the same speed and, that they can get it done. I mean, some people might have low quality and you got to send them back out. So that all needs to be taken into account.
Right.
So that you can better, accurately estimate that, so it is, there are kind of two different types of situations. And I didn't want everyone to think, oh, this guy just only uses subs. No,
the same thing goes if you're doing your own work with your own employees.
Yeah.
I was going to ask you, I can't figure out how to word this when somebody's saying, but Eric, you don't understand. I do time estimates, but my guys never hit them.
Yeah.
And I wonder how many people listening are doing time estimates based on how fast they would do the work. I'll tell you what, when I painted a house, when I fixed a deck, I went at the pace an owner would do the work. And how fast did you work when you were on the tools?
No, I was the fastest.
You're the fastest, right? But then I can't estimate based on having an Eric on the site or a Dominic. And frankly, if I was working for you, I wouldn't be working as hard as you as the owner, and vice versa, right? So do you have a rule of thumb for if the owner can do the job in X amount of time? Let's use linear feet of fencing again. If the owner can do the job in X amount of time, where do you think they should price any given employee at?
I mean, again, I would rather not guess, and I would use factual data to, and track that so that you can understand.
Well done.
Again, you have to look at the job costing and take every single hour that you put towards that job, do the math. I mean, you can always do the math, but if you don't, at the end of the job, run the numbers and keep an ongoing log and track that, then you're never going to know. And you might as well just make up a number.
That was nice. You made me look silly. That was good. No, I mean, you will be able to figure out a number, and it's never, or please don't estimate how fast you would do the job.
Always overestimate. If you're unsure, way over, put margin. I'd rather you way overestimate it, and the customer pays more, you get a more, higher profit margin than to underestimate it. Whenever there's doubt, you always got to add that padding. Same thing with materials, right? You got to add your, 10, 15% waste. Same thing with the hours. Just assume that unforeseen circumstances are going to come up every time. And, you just have to put that in there. You just got to account for the unknown, because you're giving a fixed price to the customer.
Let me throw something up right now that somebody's saying as they're listening to this, driving in their truck. But Eric, I can't raise my prices or everybody will say no.
That's just a mental, that's your own
head trash
self getting in the way here. Yeah. I mean, I hear it all the time, and I frequently are telling our customers, look, you're way under what you could be charging. And they just, not in my area, or not, I've heard all the excuses. No, that's not true. Look, the cost of materials are going up, inflation's through the roof. Like, you need to be charging, anywhere from, 30, 40, 50% is, I think a standard is a 50% profit margin. Now again, it all depends on the size of the job. I don't believe there is one size fits all. We can charge, 50% on every single job. If you're selling a $10 million home, you're not going to be charging 50% profit margin, period. It's all relative to, kind of the size and the scope of the job. It's also supply and demand. If you're booking, 3, 4, 5 months out, and I'm constantly hear people say that they're booked up for several months. You need to raise your prices. You're not charging enough.
That's right.
You need to say, and have more people turning you down, so that you can focus on the customers who are willing to pay your target margin. And that's it. It's supply and demand. There's a ton of demand right now, and there's a labor shortage. There's a lot of low supply on, hard to get materials, hard to get people out to the job sites. Yeah. Prices are going up, for better or for worse.
Eric,
if you're not increasing.
I believe that right now, like when we are living in the good times right now, people look back and say, oh, those used the good old days. We're in the good old days. There simply, hands down, has never been a better time to be in the construction trades. Hands down. People don't have time. They don't even have the tools. They still have the need. They have the money. They want to pay for somebody to do the work they want, and they want it to look nice, and they want to go golf or hang out with their family or just work from their home office, all that stuff. And here we come along thinking we got to be competitive to get that job. Well, everybody else in our industry is so busy that the old days of hearing, Eric, I'm going to get 3 estimates. So thank you so much for coming by. I'm going to compare you against the other 2 people who show up. Those other 2 guys aren't showing up. Mr. and Mrs. Smith, Mr. and Mrs. Hernandez. Those other 2 guys, not even going to come out. I'm here now, and I can take care of this, and we can get you on the schedule. Yep. So there's so many things in our favor right now in the construction trades. It's a crazy time. And I hope one day we never get there, but at some point we're going to look back and you'll say, do you remember the good old days? We're in it right now. We're in it.
And I would say if there are people out there listening saying, oh, but I'm not, they feel like they don't have that, pipeline and that demand. Well, then you probably need to look at your marketing and, figure out how you can better, you need to be positioning yourselves as very professional. You need to have very good communications, be extremely responsive. Your website, your marketing materials, branding yourself, just be that guy who is going to be the person that, the customer wants to work with. They buy from people they like, they buy from people they trust. And, look, at the same time too, if the customer's just kicking tires, don't waste any more of your time. Just, cordially bow out, say best of luck to you. If nobody else comes up, or if they can't get the job right, give us a call. We'll see if we can get you on the schedule at that point, but you got to, kind of cut your losses too. Like not every lead is a good customer,
That's right.
And so it's, focus on the customers who are going to pay you and pay for the high quality work, for the great service. And, then you go and do those jobs and make the profit that you deserve and pay your people good. And everybody wins here. The customer wins, you win, your crews win, and the world keeps going.
That's what we hope for. That's why we're here. Hey, Eric, thank you. You've covered off so many great high points today. If somebody wants to get in touch with you, find out more about you, how do we do that in this big wide world?
Yeah, I mean, I'm obviously, we're on the Facebook group together.
That's true.
Always,
Yeah.
always active there. But you can also go to our website, www.jobtread.com. Happy to have you reach out to me directly. My email is Eric, ERIC @JobTread. You can call our offices anytime. I mean, I'm pretty easy to find on Facebook. I'm very active in a lot of the groups and whatnot. But we'd certainly love to be able to kind of work with anyone out there that wants to figure out how they can better scale their business and run their jobs more profitably, because that's what we're passionate about doing, is helping other contractors to win and grow their businesses. So please do reach out.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate the comments you make on the group. And just to remind everybody, it's called Contractor Strategy Group. Eric, you're on there. I do a good job of weeding out salespeople. There's no Bitcoin billionaires with their 21-year-old faces and fake Lamborghinis, talking about crazy stuff. It's just contract. Sometimes I don't post for weeks because there's nothing to say. But then when we do, we have good conversations about margin versus markup.
Yeah, it's an awesome way for people to learn and to have that community. And so many times, and we see a lot of new contractors kind of getting in and very unsure about things, but having those veterans out there who are kind of sharing their experiences, all their battle wounds that they've got. It's a great way to learn from others, and hopefully not have to kind of learn the hard way. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to take your scars as well, and you just got to always keep getting back up, stay persistent, and just keep learning and striving to keep growing and being more profitable in every job. And I think at the end of the day, it's a great space to be in. Contracting is is awesome. Construction is booming. So keep doing it. Stay hard.
Yeah. Eric, thank you so much for being on the show. We'll probably have you back again.
All right. Look forward to it, Dom. Always appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, man. Bye-bye.
All right. See you.